so glad you are here, and aren't we thankful for our docents?
Yes.
Do such a great job and are so knowledgeable. You know, they're making us all look good out here today. And we appreciate it. Hey, I'm glad all of you are here. You know, I have to say, I've always been a storyteller and a singer, so I love to start out by simply saying, hi, neighbor, hi, neighbor. So glad all of you are here. You know, I've been here for 106 years, and I don't get too many visitors, and certainly not this many at one time. So thank you for coming out to see me today, and I hope I make it worth your while. Well, as is already expressed by our beautiful docent, my name is William Jackson McBride. You can just call me Henry. Everybody called me Henry, and that's what I had placed on my stone. Henry was the name that I always preferred, but Mom didn't mention it. But the point I want to make is I'm so glad that all of you are here, get a chance to visit. You know, I was known during my days, have to brag for just a moment, as one of the finest storytellers, and yes, sang a few tunes too, in Smith County. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk to you about my brother. Oh, he was so important to me. His name was James McBride, and he's buried here as well. In fact, we moved just about the same time here to Smith County. He's about 50 yards on the other side of the crest of this hill. He was the third fiddle player here in Smith County. Did a great job, and there are lots of times we would appear at parties, and he'd play the fiddle, and I'd sing a few tunes, and tell a few tall tales, and even dance a few dance steps. We love Smith County and the people of Tyler, Texas, and both of us spent our whole lives here once we were smart enough to know to get here. I was born in 1832 in Brush Knob, Tennessee. My mother's name was Rebecca, that's a Bible name, you know, and my father's name Ezekiel, that's a Bible name, and they were both farmers. My brother, born in 1829, a few years older than I, we were often found in the fields helping our families take care of the few acres we were able to afford to make a living. By the way, have a seat, that's what they're there for if you'd like to. To make a living, but my brother and I swore when we were little boys we were going to find a way to make a living, take care of our families, we hoped we'd have families, in a way that didn't involve such hard work. And sure enough, both my brother and I became dentists here in Tyler. But that's a little bit later in my story. But in 1855, I got a letter from my brother who said he had arrived in Smith County, and it was God's country. It encouraged me to follow. Now, at 23 years old, a young, single, I have to say, handsome fellow, I made the move to Smith County and arrived and met my brother there in Starville, Texas, on the 11th of April, 1855. You know, I remember that so well for an important reason. The day we arrived, there was a lot of commotion going on in town, and I wandered down and witnessed the laying of the cornerstone of the Methodist Church there in Starville by the local Masonic Lodge. And the reason I mention that to you is that how ironic, the very day that I arrived, the cornerstone was laid by the Masonic Lodge of the Methodist Church, and both of those organizations became huge parts of my life. As a matter of fact, I remained a Methodist over 60 years till the day I died. I was a member of Marvin Methodist, having moved into town here in Tyler. Over 30 years served on the board of directors and was a Bible class teacher all 30 years. Yes, my faith was important. And how amazing it was. What now? As much as I can, but the brethren don't tend to remember me or come by as often as I'd like. Every time I try to get out of here and go to worship myself, the gate stops me. But I'm so glad all of you here, as I shared with you earlier. 1855, I was on the prowl for a while. And I ran into, of course, I befriended the local Methodist preacher, a man by the name of James Gill, and his wife, Susan Gill. James was the local Methodist circuit rider, and he was responsible for laying the foundation of many of the Methodist churches that still exist today, all the way, they tell me it's 2019. But he was instrumental in preaching the gospel. I obeyed that gospel, and wouldn't you know it, ended up buried next to him and actually married his daughter. In fact, my wife buried here next to me, Mary Angeline Gill. Now, Mary, the love of my life, as you can see, she passed away at quite a bit younger age than I. Loved her so much, I never remarried. You ever notice that men don't tend to stay widowers too long? They either die young or remarry, but not me. Loved my wife, and Mary Angeline, or as I called her, my sweet Angie, was the only wife I ever had. All those years from 1870 to 1910, I lived on my own, served the community, as I shared with you earlier, as a dentist. But Mary was actually adopted by the Gills. They came from South Carolina. My wife was Angie was born in South Carolina to a prominent family named McCardle. And the McCardles, her great-grandfather, was actually a signer of the Declaration of Independence, representing South Carolina. And her grandfather became the governor of South Carolina. You know, Angie was always proud of her heritage, even though she was thankful to be a Gill and loved her mom and dad with all of her heart. She was a very special lady. I tell you, I can tell you truthfully, I married way out of my league when Angie said yes. As a matter of fact, we were married in April of 1860, and it wasn't long before the pitter-patter of little feet came to our home. As a matter of fact, we had 3 children in our lifetime. The first, tragically, passed away the very first day that he was born, and he's laid to rest here in an unmarked grave next to us. Had 2 other children that came along. God blessed us with 2 more. A daughter named Mary, who went on to marry a prominent merchant in Troop, Texas, and then he upped and carried her off to San Antonio. And I haven't seen her in a long time. Although I want to get down to San Antonio, because they tell me some pretty good Mexican food there. And a son by the name of James. And James became an attorney, was accepted to the bar, began practicing here in Tyler. I was proud to see that happen before I passed the way of the earth. But really his talents lay in writing. He became a well-known writer and moved to Dallas, where he served as a correspondent for the newspaper there for many, many years. I was proud of both my kids. And they were a big part of the blessings that we enjoyed in the few short years that we were married. Well, as I shared with you, 1855 were wonderful years in Smith County. Married my wife in 1860, but it wasn't long till the dark clouds of war gathered. And in 1861, the governor of Texas called her sons to her defense. And I answered that call and joined the 15th Texas Infantry. Oh, I tried to get into the cavalry. I wanted to be one of those fellas on the horse that prance around, but they ended up putting me in the foot cavalry. And I marched everywhere I went for almost 5 years. Served as a private until 1864, when I guess they saw something in me, because they promoted me to the rank of first lieutenant, and I was moved to the Ordnance Department, which supported the work of the battalion. And later, in 1865, just a few months before the war ended, I was promoted yet once again to the rank of captain and joined the staff of Colonel Hill, who was the battalion commander. As a matter of fact, I have my captain's jacket here with the blade that designates that of the sword that I carried during those dark years in defense of home and hearth and family. Those were difficult years. I was a rebel to the end, as a matter of fact. When the war did finally come to an end, our unit was in Louisiana, and we chose not to ever surrender. We simply lowered our flags and went home. And I'm proud of my service and thankful that I had opportunity to serve my adopted state. So I came back in 1865. You can imagine how devastated things were here at that time. The economy was ruined. Somehow Angie and I were able to scrimp up enough money, and together with my brother, we moved to New Orleans, he and his wife, and we both attended the dental school of New Orleans. We graduated together in 1868 and hightailed it immediately back here to Texas. Now, I graduated from the New Orleans School of Dentistry, which they tell me became a part of some school I've never heard of called LSU. Graduated with honors and came back here, and brother and I set up a practice here that, as I share with you, together over 30 years, and myself 54 years, my brother having preceded me several years in death. Our home was located at 211 South Broadway, and actually the lower floor was James and our office, and the upper floor was Angie and our home, and we raised our children there. Beautiful home. They tell me that nowadays on that corner there is what they call a giant parking garage for horseless carriages, and right across the street is a place that sells coffee, costs $5 a cup. You believe that? I tell you, times have changed. Well, as I share with you, I always loved to sing. During the war years, we had those great songs like the Bonnie Blue Flag. We are a band of brothers native to the soil, fighting for our liberties we gain by honest toil. And of course, in the latter days of my life, wrote songs like "By the light of the silvery moon." Oh, those were great days. As we shared with you earlier, my wife tragically passed away in 1870. Never really fully gotten over that. I don't know that you can. But so thankful that she paved the way for me to heaven. Reunited once again. You know, I think that's the greatest thing about faith, is it makes a promise to us that's eternal. And I hope that encourages all of us. Well, I ended up practicing dentistry here for many, many years. And it was quite popular because there were only 3 dentists in the whole county, and my brother and I were 2 of the 3. Matter of fact, many of the local residents still get up in the middle of the night every now and then tap on my stone, ask me to help them with a tooth that's killing them. So I share with you, I served 13 years back to back as president of the lodge in masonry, Bible class teacher. All those things were my form of serving my God and fellow man. I'm so grateful to have been a part of Smith County history. And for people like you who came out here to remember what went on before. Oh, what a great day it was. And as you walk through this cemetery and look at each of the stones, remember there's a story each and every one has to tell. Maybe not all happy, but each has a story. And I'm so thankful that you came here to hear a portion of mine.
Why was Mary adopted by the Gills?
You know, I had often asked her that, and she never could give an answer. However, I found that it was common during those years, and this is speculation, that if a husband and wife were unable to have children, and there was a family nearby that had multiple children, sometimes they would agree to allow that child to be adopted. But that is speculation. Angie never told me that she knew for sure why.
Do you think she was an illegitimate child of the signer of the Declaration of
Well, we don't know, so why don't we say, oh yeah, I mean, it was probably really big scale.
Yeah.
You bet. Glad to have everybody.
Ladies